I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Hey, what's up? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this special edition of I Mix What I Like Live. Again, I'm Jared Ball here at Black Power Media, getting ready to support the coverage, support with coverage, that is the Black Alliance for Peace International Day of Solidarity with Haiti and their rally in downtown Washington, D.C. So definitely like, share, subscribe. We have a couple of guests coming up over the next hour or so. And of course, as the rally folks reach out and jump on in, we will break in to welcome them. In the interim, though, I do have a number of things actually to take up some time as we wait, and when our guests come, we'll just interrupt. But it may be the case that I will come back and go live again later today, this afternoon, maybe, to cover and to finish covering some of the stuff I want to start with this morning. But we'll see how it goes. But the first thing I just want to say is that we want to shout out and welcome the newest addition to the Black Power Media channel in terms of shows getting off the ground. And that is, of course, the Real Talk program with Dr. Sundiata Chajua, which just launched the other day. If you haven't gotten a chance to see it, you definitely have to watch it. Great new program. And the first conversation he had with Dr. Monica White was amazing, and for a number of different reasons. And again, I recognize that, see, I'm lagging here again a little bit. I really don't understand what it's sometimes hard not to be a little suspicious because there's no issues with my internet. And there's been nothing wrong up until the moment that I start to go live with the platform. And even right now, I'm looking at perfectly strong internet targeted to this device. And yet, for some reason, as soon as I start to go live, there's an issue with the quality of the connection. And I mean, even as I'm looking at all the diagnostics, there's no explanation for it. All I can say is I have a supercharged setup internet-wise, everything targeted to this device. Everything is moving. Anyway, doesn't make any sense. But nevertheless, so shout out to Dr. Chajua and Dr. White, because please, you have to check out that, if you haven't already, make sure you see that interview. And the headline for me was not only the way Dr. White talks about the tendency in the way Black studies or Black history is conducted that has an emphasis or a bias in favor of those who left the South as opposed to those who stayed and built institutions. I thought that was deep. And then the highlight from that, beyond that, was that, as they point out, the largest Black organization the world has ever seen was not the Garvey movement, which I myself have thought for a long time was the case. But in fact, they say, when you see this discussion, it makes some sense, that it was really the Colored Farmers Alliance that was the biggest. And when they start breaking down why there's no focus on the Colored Farmers Alliance, it's pretty deep. It's funny, Ian, that you say that. We hear you. But check it out, because it's sometimes hard not to you might want to dismiss that, but when you look at just at the records uncovered from my family, both sides, there's a lot of reason to suspect that would be the case. We've drawn a lot of attention over the years in my family, but anyway. So that was one thing. So shout out to Dr. Chajua and Dr. White. That was a fantastic conversation. Then a couple other things that I thought that I would want to go over with you all while we await word from our Black Alliance for Peace comrades. And I think Dr. Mamira Prosper is going to come through to talk about, again, the importance and some updates on what's going on with Haiti. Is that, first of all, I just hope you all saw the new deal signed over the weekend between Iran and China, weakening further the U.S. influence in the world. The deal is pretty extensive, is going to help them increase the trading with one another. And as as Khomeini in Iran said, the day of the West, the day that is of the U.S. dominance is on its way out. It's over. Like, so I even as those of us with a particular focus on whether it's Black America or the African diaspora, I think that all of us need to be much more aware and paying attention to that kind of relationship. And this is why having an internationalist perspective in politics is essential. And even just going back and, we've talked about it here a little bit. Dr. CBS talks about them all the time. Dr. Gerald Horne's work on this issue and the history of the relationship of the so-called red world and the U.S. and Black America is really important. And we need to be revisiting that. We need to revisit the history. I have depicted there Robert and Mabel Williams. The internationalist relationship that they had evolved and were working on is something we should revisit. So I hope, and we'll come back and talk more about that as well on this, certainly on this show and this platform, I'm sure. But it's something that I certainly want to pay more attention to, and I would encourage us all to. There's a couple of other things also. I don't know if anybody else. I've recommended this outlet a lot over the last few weeks or months, and I want to say again and encourage. Let's see that folks add to their media diet this outlet here. Wall Street on Parade, which is just a sort of a family outfit, the Mertens, a husband and wife team, who I have invited to come on. And unfortunately, they don't give interviews. They're just focused on their work. But as I continue to say, when you see the work that they do, you'll understand why. And this is one of the stories, a couple of weeks ago when the GameStop story was breaking big, I did a video about it based on the Mertens' work and some others, and I would encourage people to go back and check that out because among many other things, I get to say I think pretty clearly by now that I was right, that all the uproar that people were wanting to make about this being a sort of David versus Goliath, the little guy using capitalism and using the market to overthrow the big guys was not real. And what the Mertens were showing were, among other things, was that the principal players who were being depicted as some, small retail traders, in his basement was in fact a well-funded and placed and licensed and employed Wall Street financier, and that a lot of big ones that, while some were being noted for losing money in all of the increased investment in GameStop, first of all, they were backed up and supported by bigger financial groups, so it's not like they went fully under. And more to the point here, and as I'm showing in this piece here, there were even other bigger hedge funds and Wall Street players and banks involved in quote pun intended, hedging their bets, and were making themselves plenty of money while it was being said that the little guy was doing all of that. So in a story that just came out the other day through the Mertens, Wall Street on Parade, what they're talking about here, a massive increase in trading in GameStop by dark pools owned by mega Wall Street banks coincided with the spike in share price. They've done the research to show that at the time when everybody was talking about, look at all the little guys investing and making a killing and paying off their student loan debts and blah, 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 and creating, I think, a whole bunch of mythology around what can be done in, in Wall Street trading. Dark pools, which I had to look into. I'm certainly no expert in this, but they're legal. They're legal private trading platforms that allow big players to move big bunches of trades in private without it being necessarily known who's doing what. And apparently it is legal. It is something that is done routinely, but is something that the Mertens remind should be monitored. And as they say here, if the Securities and Exchange Commission is not taking a hard look at the involvement of dark pools owned by the biggest banks on Wall Street during the meteoric spike in price of GameStop shares in late January, then we have to conclude that it doesn't want to actually get at the truth. Wall Street on Parade spent 1 hour combing through the dark pool trading data available through Wall Street's self-regulator, FINRA, and the evidence of dark pool's involvement in the dodgy trading in GameStop is striking. GameStop is a New York Stock Exchange listed company and has been trading like a penny stock operated out of a boiler room, raising questions about its integrity of U.S. markets. By the way, there's the movie that got Vin Diesel star increasingly on the rise. Was the movie Boiler Room, which is just shows you just how traders can set up phony stock, pump and dump operations. If you want to see a dramatized, fictionalized, view of what is being discussed there. FINRA only provides dark pool data lumped together for an entire week instead of on a daily basis, but even using the less than transparent weekly data, the correlation is striking. From the week of December 21st to the week of January 25th, dark pools trading volume in GameStop went from 4.9 million shares in a total week to 44.1 million. An increase of 800%. The share price of stock likewise went from a closing price of little over $15 on December 21st to over 193 on January 28th, an increase of 1,100%. So again, it's not, and then they actually go into and they talk a little bit about how these dark pools those using them, like UBS, and by the way, UBS has been involved in so much international money laundering and banking scandals, as has JP Morgan Chase, who were described later in this piece in terms of their pricing scandals and why the Merton think that is not people, but the Securities and Exchange Commission. Anyway, but the point for me is that again, this wasn't some David and Goliath situation where people could be, where small people could get together and overcome big hedge funds. Again, because those big hedge funds are protected by even bigger entities, and then of course the biggest entities themselves were involved on basically both sides of the bet, and were making all this money hand over fist anyway. So. Anyway, I do invite people to go back and check the previous video, and I'll put the link in here, to this video as well, when it, later on. But I encourage people to go check that video out because, again, happily and I don't mind, breaking out, as we used to say on radio, the big bag of "I told you so's." But, all these people running around here, there is no capitalist scheme we can use to overcome and overturn and redistribute wealth. Okay. We need political power and public policy to address all of this. And if you really want all of these details beyond my ability to explain, please check Wall Street on Parade, because their blog is fascinating and very revealing. And again, it shows that the biggest players are involved and they're being protected, and they're making plenty of money, despite it being said that again, that this was some David and Goliath situation. So that was one thing. And again, we are waiting to hear from our Black Alliance for Peace folks. And even when I jump out of here at 1 o'clock, if one of my colleagues doesn't jump in to host, we will be leaving the stream up and running so that those at the rally, when they jump in, can broadcast and share what they're involved with. So you can, even beyond my ability to sort of host, the stream will be here, and you all can we invite people to check out the Black Alliance for Peace rally. Once they get it up and running, we will definitely be here to support that, and appreciate Brother Silberg and the Silbergs in general. Please do hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider joining the channel. We have a lot more coming, and the membership revenue is being put to good use already to expand the channel. By no means anybody's pockets, and anyway, there's so much more coming, so please do all of that. All right, a couple other things let's cover here real quick, if I can, while we await our BAP comrades. One, let me let you know, first of all, we're going to be talking, I believe, stay tuned, because on the one hand, I am trying to set a schedule for my show, which I think will be Mondays, but at the same time, trying to accommodate a lot of different things that are happening that we are excited to be involved with trying to help cover. So tomorrow, and I'm not sure exactly when, I believe there's going to be a couple of conversations coming up. One, Brother Davon Love of Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle wants to chime in on a piece I'm going to come back to here in just a minute. This issue of celebrity activism. He has some thoughts about some and I'm not sure exactly what they are, maybe a critique of what I and Dr. CBS were saying in her segment, the Last Open Intellectual. So, and we always welcome, constructive criticism from good folks like Davon. So we'll see what he has to say. That'll be tomorrow at some point, so stay tuned for that. But we're also going to be checking in with journalist Mel Reeves, who's covering the Derek Chauvin trial, which starts today out there in Minneapolis. So we were going to be considering going live with him today during his lunch break, or during the trial's lunch break, but I don't think we're going to be able to make that work. So tomorrow we're going to talk to him about what he saw today with that firsthand coverage of the Chauvin trial. So stay tuned for that as well. And then next, I think is it next Monday, April 5th, we will be, please consider joining us for what will be we're going to do a 10th anniversary members only live stream, April 5th, 12 p.m. Eastern time, to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the publication of my first book, I Mix What I Like, a Mixtape Manifesto. I'm very excited to talk with you all about that. It is members only to the YouTube channel, so please become a member. Patreons at blackpowermedia.org will get the video shortly thereafter, and then we'll release it to the public in time after that. But to be there live and get the first dibs on the scoops, because there's some stories to tell. What did Biggie say? Roll it up, get your drink. What he say? I got a story to tell. You want to be there live for that as well. Let's see. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to talk with you all about, again, while we're waiting for our BAP comrades to come through, there's a couple of things that are really very important. One of which is the issue of political prisoners, which is something that we cover here on a routine basis, and are noting the absence of coverage in many other spaces. And one thing that I noticed, which I thought was very interesting on a number of levels, is that this piece here came out the other day, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I've reached out to a number of folks on the white left who I don't think have said word one about the issue of Mumia Abu Jamal, or certainly this brother here, Sundiata Acoli. But it's something that we don't see enough, period. So to the extent that anyone is, ourselves included, it's not happening enough. So we want to continue to shed light on it. But what I'm finding very interesting, and I admit in my tendency towards the petty, I watch a lot of white left outlets, and over the last several months, I've watched a lot of beef arise between the white left and some of their superstars and this outlet here, The Intercept, which was co-founded some years ago by, of course, Glenn Greenwald, who is no longer with The Intercept because, as he's been pointing out, they've become increasingly more neoliberal and conservative, and attempting to censor the kinds of journalism that he wanted to do. So he left. But but to my point, Glenn and his comrades who all lined up in defense of him, Jimmy Dore, the Gray Zone, a lot of folks, I watch their stuff all the time. And I really enjoy it. We've interviewed some of them here. I appreciate their work in many aspects in what they do, but when it comes to this, they seem absent. So I thought it was interesting, and I've reached out to them and asked them, could you cover more political prisoners, specifically the issue of Mumia on his deathbed, more or less over these last few weeks, and desperately not only needing of health care, but his release. I haven't heard word one. A lot of people talking about Julian Assange. They're not talking about, the political prisoners of the Black liberation struggle, not even the white ones like David Gilbert, who's still locked up. So while they're hating on The Intercept, here's this story that comes out yesterday talking about Sundiata Kohli, who is now 84 and, should be getting some pandemic relief and getting released. So we certainly support that. We had Sophia Elijah on, and the Free Sundiata crew come on to talk about his case. He's in poor health, and as you might expect, after enduring 48 years in prison at the age of 84, the prison has effects on his body. His conditions include advancing dementia, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, emphysema, glaucoma. Kohli is a serious COVID-19 infection last year, which left him 30 pounds lighter and more infirm. So he obviously is deserving of gaining his release. Now, I also think it's interesting that when the Intercept does its story covering all the people who have covered this story, they didn't mention us. And I know that we can't be, swallowed up by that many who have been covering these issues, certainly more than we have. But, it's all good. But I, did notice that, by the way, as I mentioned, it is, tend towards the petty from time to time. But like a Kohli, Herman Bell, Jaleel Muttaqin, who we're in touch with, and Renegade Culture got the first interview with, which is again why I'm saying I think it's interesting that we're not mentioned here. Like, this is not a link to that interview. And they do mention Mumia here, Russell Maroon Schultz, Mutulu Shakur, all Black elders whose ongoing imprisonments constitute an excess of carceral cruelty. Each of the men has at some point in the last year contracted COVID-19. Schultz has stage 4 colon cancer and was reportedly held for 10 days in the gymnasium with 30 other coronavirus. By the way, forgive me for taking this long to mention this and jumping in and interrupting myself. I was alerted to this, not because I follow The Intercept. I don't. I was alerted to this story because I am subscribed to the Freedom Archives, freedomarchives.org prisoner newsletter. So make sure you've signed up to that if you haven't already, and then you won't miss these alerts either, which is another reason why I'm almost sure, and it's possible I missed something, and I'm happy to be corrected, especially if this coverage has occurred. But that's why I'm almost positive I have not missed, or I have not seen this level of coverage in these other outlets that were both critical of The Intercept for becoming more conservative, but who themselves can't seem to give any coverage to these issues, even when people like me reach out directly to them and they respond, or at least acknowledge receipt of the communique. So anyway. Laura Whitehorn, co-founder, who you can see interviewed with us on at imixwhatilike.org, or on the channel, the I Mix What I Like playlist at the Black Power Media channel. Laura Whitehorn, co-founder of the Release Aging People in Prison campaign in behalf, and herself a former political prisoner, tweeted that Akoli, Abu Jamal, Schultz, and Shakur Mutulu, that is, among others, remain behind bars while Judas and the Black Messiah win film awards, referring to the recent Hollywood. By the way, this is again the point I'm getting at, and a point I'm going to come back to in just a moment, when it relates to this issue of people keep continuing to say, don't be too critical of popular media because many uses can be put towards that commercial pop media product. It's being used by many others. And here's a point. It's, you know, the Judas and the Black Messiah film is not being used to spread awareness of political prisoners and encouraging their freedom. So I'm going to pause there because it looks like we have with us live down at the Black Alliance for Peace.
All right, is this better?
Solidarity Day rally.
All right, so I want to, hold on, baby.
So I'm going to step out and let's check out what we're getting there.
To help support the Black Alliance for Peace and our Solidarity rally with Haiti. It's an international rally today. So across the world and across the country, people are protesting in support. But I want to talk a little bit about Black Alliance for Peace. This Sunday will be our 4th year. We'll be 4 years old this Sunday. And I have been with Black Alliance for Peace for 3 years. And in the 3 years that I have been in Black Alliance for Peace, we have done a tremendous job of reigniting the anti-war tradition that is of the past. Excuse me. We've done a tremendous job of getting people to talk about AFRICOM, reigniting internationalism, Pan-Africanism, things that people swore were dead. And so we have, I'm very proud of the organization. I'm very proud of the work that we've been doing all month in solidarity of Haiti. We were at the embassy on the 1st. We were at OAS on the 15th. And today we are outside the State Department because we are showing tremendous solidarity with Haiti. They want the core group out. So we are hitting up all the core group spots and asking them to get out of Haiti. So we have lots of speakers today. I'm gonna, not take too much time talking, but they are, if you have not received a paper or flyer about what we're doing today, be sure to get one. If you have not signed the sign-in sheet, be sure to do so. I'm going to introduce, Lucy, you want to come here? You can say it, yeah.
How'd you do that? How'd you flip it? Are you doing the immediate stream?
The first truly independent country.
Show me. You gotta do what?
But none of us are free if one of us is chained. None of us are free.
None of us are free.
None of us are free.
Tell me how to do that.
None of us are free.
None free. You better listen, my brother. If you do, you can hear their voices still calling across the years. They are crying across the ocean. They are crying across the land. And they will till we all come to understand. None of us are free.
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 None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. There are people in darkness. They just can't see the light. If we don't say it's wrong, then that says it's right. We got to feel for each other. Let our brothers know we're here. Got to get the message. Send it out all loud and clear. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. Well, I swear to you, salvation isn't very hard to find. None of us can find it on our own. We got to join together, spirit, heart, and mind. So all the souls who are suffering know they're not alone. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Help me out, man. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
None of us are free.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. None of us are.
Ooh,
Ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. None of us are free.
Well, I swear to you, salvation isn't very hard to find. None of us can find it on our own. We got to join together, spirit, heart, and mind. So all the souls who are suffering, now they're not alone. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. If you just look around you, you're gonna see what I say, that the world's getting smaller each passing day. Now it's time to make some changes. It's time we all realize that the truth is shining right before our eyes. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us is chained. None of us are free. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy Murphy. Thank you. We will have some more performances throughout this program. Right now, I'm going to invite Rebecca up. No, okay. Right now, I'm going to invite Rafiki up if you want to come and say some words. You prepared for that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready for the revolution, so you can't ask me if I'm ready. I have to be ready. All right, how y'all doing today? Y'all out there? All right. My name is Rafiki Morris, and I'm the organizer with the All African People's Revolutionary Front. We're here today, and throughout the day, you're going to get a bunch of information about what's happening in Haiti. I'm also a member of the Coordinating Council of the Black Alliance for Peace. And I want you to take note of the information that you get. I want you to process the information that you get. Because right now, in this day, at this time, in this place, there is no longer an excuse for ignorance. Them days is gone. Everything you want to know is in your pocket. All the information you need to find out what's going on in the world around you is in that smartphone. And the question is, are you smart enough to use that phone to find out what you need to know to understand what's going on to you in the world today? Haiti, right now, has a dictator named Moise, who decided he didn't want to leave office. And so the people have risen up to let him know that they ain't taking that. But the struggle in Haiti is not just about this one president. Because it was a president before him, and a president before him, and a president before him, and a president before him, going all the way back to 1804. In fact, the Haitians have been fighting for the same thing since before 1804, because they fought when they put them on them ships to ship them to Haiti. It was the same thing they're fighting for right now, freedom. We hear a lot of people talking about rights, but you don't have no rights if you ain't free. A slave don't have no rights. A sharecropper, they don't have no rights. Black people in America, you ain't got no rights because you ain't free. The first condition for getting your rights is getting your liberty, getting your freedom, being in control of your own destiny. This is what the fight in Haiti is all about. And whether you understand it or not, they're fighting for your freedom. Because Haiti has always been in the forefront of our people in this hemisphere fight for freedom. Is that right? They was back when they was having bows and arrows and spears, they was the tip of the spear. They was the top of the arrow. Now they the hollow point bullet shell. That's blowing up imperialism. They're at the forefront. They're teaching all of us, we who have the least can fight the hardest and fight the best. So if they can fight in Haiti with nothing, what you doing? What are we doing? We gotta get ourselves motivated, organized, and mobilized to do our part. The best thing we can do for Haiti is to organize ourselves to fight these pigs right here who's oppressing Haiti. Is that right? That's your tax dollars that's putting bullets in them guns that they shooting in the communities of Haiti. It's your tax dollars that pays for the tear gas that they spray on people when they stand up and say, I want to be free. It's your tax dollars who fund that dictator who's down there right now denying the people of Haiti of their rights. So we have two objectives today. One, to tell these pigs in the State Department, like we told these pigs in the Organization of American States, and we told them at the Haitian embassy, we come to tell you once again, get your bloody hands off of our people. Get your bloody hands off of Haiti. Get your bloody hands off of Africa. Get your bloody hands off of Southeast Washington, D.C. This days is over. And we want to let you know we know who you are and we know what you're doing. But the other thing we're doing here today, which might be a little bit more important, is that we networking. We're taking people's names. We're connecting to each other. We're building a movement, y'all. We're building a movement. Right now, it's small and it's taking baby steps. But the more we build, the more we communicate, the more we learn, because you got to learn out here, then the stronger the movement's going to be. So we can do two things at one time. We can condemn this U.S. government and support the people of Haiti, and we can also organize ourselves to fight for our freedom, because we ain't free yet, and we got to keep the fight going. I just want to end real quick. I know I'm taking a little more time than I planned, but I want to read y'all something. It's a poem. This poem is called For the Comfortable Ones. This poem is for the comfortable ones, for the bureaucrats who exist to ensure their existence, for the civil servants who are not civil and do not serve, for the teachers who teach what to think but don't know how to think, for the policemen who serve capital and protect property, for the doctors selling health, the lawyers selling justice, the politicians selling their souls, for the upwardly mobile, down-pressing, respectable, well-mannered individualists, for the used-to-be's, claim-to-be's, and wannabes. This poem's for the wealthy ones, for their peace-absent justice, structurally adjusted debt servicing, payment balancing, neoliberal globalization. For the owners, spoilers, movers, shakers, high rollers, and day traders. For the money changers and their armies of analysts, managers, lawyers, accountants, and consultants. For the Barclays, Gates, Oppenheimers, and Rockefellers. For placing profit above the progress, markets above development, and the bottom line above human life. This poem is for the rulers, for the invisible government behind the government, the transnationals behind the invisible government, and the class behind the transnationals behind the invisible government behind the government. For the puppet makers, the puppeteers, the puppets, and the ties that bind them. This poem is for the acronyms. For the UN, WB, USA, IMF, WTO, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, TNT, FBI, CIA, MI6, NATO, OAS, AU, IRS, NSA, SA, SSEEC, BBC, VOA, CBC, and the whole damn imperialist alphabet. This poem is for Mr. In-Between, for the brown nosing, mediating, facilitating, vacillating, arbitrating, negotiating, yes, bossing, butt kissing, fence sitting, liberal, reformist, opportunist middlemen. For the used to be revolutionaries, the ex-socialists, the former Marxists, the retired Black Panthers, the ex-Pan-Africanists, ex-nationalists, was once anti-this, that, and the other thing, militant turned content to change the system from withiners. This poem is for the intellectuals, for the reactionary right-wing ideologues, philosophers, metaphysicians, theologians, think tankers, propagandists, producers, agents, writers, lyricists, poets, novelists, editors, publishers, printers, historians, sociologists, psychologists, psychiatrists, market managers, and wholesale and retail distributors of the sham, the lie, and the cruel hoax. This poem is for the spies, for the intelligence agencies, for the operatives, for the informants, the infiltrators, the eavesdroppers, the wiretappers, the video surveillances, the satellite photographers, the record keepers, the data analysts, the posters, and the privacy invaders. This poem is for the patriarchs. I'm going to say that again. This poem is for the patriarchs, for the sexists, the kings, chiefs, husbands, sons, fathers, brothers who think they are better than the mothers, daughters, sisters, wives, grandmothers, and those with non-binary gender identities, for the macho men, enabling women and oppressors of the human spirit, for the pimps, rapists, and violent physical and mental abusers, for the exploiters of labor, the unequal pay, for the devaluation of family management and the essential social labor, for the nation's class and gender enemies. This poem is for the mercenaries, for the armies of armies, for the murderers, torturers, assassins, thieves, sellouts, backstabbers, ethnic cleansers, provocateurs, saboteurs, environmental terrorists, Judas-like double dipping both ends against the middle, goes to the highest bidder, dealing death squad goons and self-serving thugs. If you stand among the patriarchs, wealthy rulers, and their acronyms, middlemen, intellectuals, spies, and mercenaries, you are one of the comfortable ones. And this poem is for you. This poem does.
All right, everybody. Well, unfortunately, we'll take that in stride, because we have with us Dr. Mamira Prosper, who is, of course, our Black Alliance for Peace Haiti coordinator. I'm going to go ahead. Whoops, sorry about that. I'm just going to mute them for right now. We'll come back to that because we are running up on a little bit of a time issue, unfortunately. So forgive interruption you. And it looks like I'm freezing up again, but it's good to see you. Welcome back. And wanted to just, of course, have you chime in with what your thoughts are in terms of the importance of this rally and being in international solidarity with Haiti.
Right. So just quick correction. International Coordinator for Community Movement Builders.
Oh, right. Oh, geez. My bad. I forget all the cross-pollination here. Community Movement Builders. Exactly. My apologies. Sorry about that.
Many of us have been working together in different cities to make this day possible. And I just wanted to jump on for a couple of minutes, really, to give you and your audience a rundown in terms of all the folks who are standing up with Haiti today, with the people of Haiti in solidarity against dictatorship backed by members of the core group, right, who are the usual suspects, the U.S., the UN, and for those of us in the States who may know less, right, the Organization of American States, which is really just an organism controlled by the U.S. To determine electoral politics in the rest of the region. And so today we've had several different events. People in Canada and Ottawa and Montreal have done sit-ins in front of the Haitian consulate and Haitian embassy. We've had folks are on the ground right now in New York City at the United Nations mission, the U.S. United Nations mission. So we're talking about, right, Manhattan. We have folks who are today in Boston and in front of the JFK Federal Building. We have folks in DC. Obviously, you guys have been watching. We will have folks later this afternoon in Atlanta, where I am, touring down with community movement builders. We're going to be marching downtown, right around the headquarters of Coca-Cola. And and I'll talk a little bit more about the different targets. The folks in Santo Domingo already threw down. Dominican Republic. We have folks right now in Puerto Rico throwing down. We have groups of folks in Caracas who made this beautiful mural dedicated to Dessalines. In Venezuela, they're going to be having a small little rally as well. We're going to have folks in Montevideo, Uruguay. Folks in Palo Sul, Brazil, have already thrown down. We're also going, folks in Haiti themselves are going to be throwing down today. They were already in the streets yesterday. And the folks in Paris, France already have done some actions. We even have folks as far as Zambia on the continent standing in solidarity with the Haitian people, and several folks who've put out videos, who've put out as well letters, right, of support and denunciation. Because the idea is twofold, is to give Haitian people more strength to continue their fight, because we all believe that this is the Haitian people's fight, right, to determine themselves. And this is why this date was particularly important, is the date of the Constitution of 1987, which 34 years ago, right, the people voted in, because this was it marked a break with a 29-year dictatorship of the Duvalier regime. And we see the same people, right, their children or even themselves are back in power through this regime, and they're basically pulling out pages out of that dictatorship book from, right, the 50s into the 80s. And this is part of why everyone has gathered around this day in particular. And the targets, as I said, right, the folks in DC are targeting the U.S. Department. The folks in New York are targeting the UN mission. Some other folks are targeting the Haiti consulate or embassies that are throughout Latin America, to put pressure on these various targets to respect the demands of the Haitian people on the ground, which is not to do away with this constitution that the president is trying to single-handedly change, right? And to keep the popular spirit that made this constitution possible in 1987. And this
signed today, 1987.
Today, exactly today in 1987, signed, exactly. And this was, as I said, really, unlike, elite constitutions created in other places like the US, right? This was really a popular push for a kind of constitution that would reflect, right, the kinds of changes and the kind of models of democracy and self-determination that the Haitian people themselves wanted. So it is particularly symbolic that, right, we need to defend and stand with this particular piece of document that is the law of the land, that this particular president that refuses to step down, who never had a mandate anyway from the Haitian people, has never respected. And of course he would want to change it, right, to give himself more power. And that
Right on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to share, for folks who are listening, that what we're seeing in DC is actually happening in multiple places right now, throughout the Americas and other parts of the world, some parts of the continent itself, and some parts of Western Europe. So I just wanted to make sure that we know that this is really an international day. And we have over 100 organizations throughout the Americas have come together for this day.
Right on. By the way, are there, other than preserving the Constitution that was signed in '87, what are some of the other demands that the Haitian people want specific support for, and that those around the world are gathering to be in solidarity with?
Absolutely. So again, the Constitution is a symbol for something greater, right, than the actual pages. And so whereas we are rallying around this day, right, but it's beyond just about this day, right? It's also about this particular dictator, really, who remains in power even after his mandate has ended, though even his mandate itself was already questionable because the elections were fraudulent. And he belongs to a party that essentially has been put in power by the US, by the UN, by the OAS, right? And so the demands here are multiple, is to support that what the Haitian people are demanding. And in order for us who are on the outside, particularly those of us who are in the United States, it's our responsibility to ask, right, and to demand that the US keep their hands out of Haiti's affairs, right? Stop handpicking puppets, right, to run the place. Allow the Haitian people to make their own decisions about the kind of leadership that they want, the kind of democracy that they want, right, rather than always having the US meddle in the affairs of Haiti. So if there's anything that, at least on this end of the things, right, the folks in the US, what we are focusing on is the piece, right, that we have really the power to, hopefully the power, right, to control, which is to demand that the US remove itself from what Haiti has to do for itself, right, and allow the Haitian people to determine themselves. I think that's the big ask on this end of things, that whatever it is that the Haitians demand, right, that we are willing to echo it. And the way that we understand that we can put this pressure is to demand that the US remove its presence in Haiti and in the affairs of Haitian people.
Absolutely. And yeah, of course, we're going to stand in solidarity with that. And anyway, so listen, I know our time was a little short and rushed today. I don't want to, but I want to make sure that whatever else needs to be added is there anything else you wanted us to quickly focus on?
I think the big thing that many folks are confused about, right, particularly when we say that this dictator should step down, right, folks are maybe thinking that means that the Haitian people want to rush towards elections. And one of the things that they've made clear is that the conditions on the ground are not favorable towards new elections, being that in the last 10 years, right, the two sets of presidential elections have given, right, these, people who are not chosen by the Haitian people because they were handpicked by the US and the UN, right? So folks are not ready to launch into another set of elections that we already know will be controlled, right? So what they're asking for is rather a transition government, and there are several proposals on the ground that would help to figure out how to deal with the current situation of the gangs, right? The security questions, because we can't even begin to talk about elections if the entire territory is controlled by what is 117 armed gangs. Who's going to go to elections, right, when these folks are going to show up, right, to prevent certain kinds of people from voting? So that's unrealistic to think that without addressing this question of security, that we can move forward with elections, and let alone a constitutional change. That's not where the people's minds are, right? The people's minds are in the immediate things that need to be resolved in this space for them to start thinking about what elections, what kind of elections. And they've already said multiple times that they want a transition government to prepare the way for what could come in 3 years, right? So that's some of the things that are coming out of the ground that perhaps, folks, if you don't speak Creole, right, may miss, right? But this is what folks are saying. We don't want any new elections now. We don't want a new constitution. We want this president to go, and we want a transition government to get us out of this. And they're using a particular metaphor of, in Creole it says chavirer chaudière, which means, right, spilling over the cauldron, which is a way metaphorically to say we want to undo this exploitative, hierarchical, capitalist, right, anti-people system, right? And this is where the Haitian people are. This is the momentum. This is what we in the international are supporting, right? Is that really this moment where Haitian people are attempting to take control back over their territory and their space and their determination. This is like one of the things I wanted to make sure that we hear.
No, and we definitely appreciate that. And Dr. Mamira Prosper, we certainly will have to have you back for a much longer conversation again about all of this going forward from today. But unfortunately, I have to run. And we want to turn back over to the coverage of the rally. So Dr. Prosper, thank you very much for coming through, and look forward again, obviously, to the next time you visit us and we hear much more. And thank you for your work in community movement builders.
Yes. Yeah, there's like you said, at this point, a lot of us are crossing, and especially through Black Power media. So this is, I think it's good. It's a good future connection between us.
Right on. Absolutely. Okay. Again, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Until next time, take care of yourself. All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Thanks again to Dr. Mamira Prosper. And I want to shout out to everybody in the chat. Please stick around. I'm going to have to step out, but we're going to leave the coverage up here. Brother Netfa and others are down there at the rally continuing with the coverage, and others may jump on and add further commentary. Shout out to Dr. Pierre in the chat as well. And by the way, I am very late to this, but I just caught up to Peter Hudson's some of that work on racial capitalism in South Africa. Good Lord, we got some conversations to have here at BPM. So much to talk about as some of us get our late passes ready and get caught up to some of this incredible work that's being done that is not getting enough attention. So anyway, shout out to everybody. A big shout out to Black Alliance for Peace. Please sign up and join with them. Please hit the like button, the share button, the join button for Black Power Media. I'm going to probably be back in a couple of hours to finish up some of the conversations we were having before, but again, want to turn it back over to the comrades down at the rally, and stay right here, Black Power Media. I will catch you later. Peace to those willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say, as is happening right now. So stick around. Peace, everybody.
I think it's yesterday. Today is celebrating 34 years on this day that Haiti adopted a new constitution. And this is the Haiti's 1987 constitution that expanded civil liberties and human rights guarantees and declared Haiti an indivisible, sovereign, independent, cooperative, free, democratic, and social republic. And as we move through the program, I'll keep reading different parts of the Constitution to just give perspective on what Black folks are fighting for in Haiti and across the world. And one of them that I'll share right now is Article 22, which says, the state of Haiti recognizes the right of every citizen to decent housing, security. And so that's one of the many things that the Haitian Constitution is calling for. And we're sitting here right now at the Department of State, and across the street we have one of the highest, the largest homeless encampments in DC. And the contradictions are glaring right now. The billions of dollars that the Biden administration, the Trump administration, the Obama administration, the Bush administration, the Clinton administration have been using to fund a war on Haiti and African people around the world can be used to be taking care of folks here in DC. So our next speaker is Max with PACA.
Greetings, my name is Max Ramo. I am an organizer with Pan-African Community Action, or PACA. I want to thank you all for coming out and showing solidarity. These actions, just like this one, are happening not only all across the United States, but all over the world at this time on this date. They're happening all over the world in solidarity with the protests that are happening right now in Haiti. And people in Haiti are fighting against U.S. imperialism, and they're fighting against dictatorship, and they're fighting for a new future for us all. So I want to spend a couple minutes talking about the relationship between what happens in Haiti and what happens here in the United States and really all across the world. In 1791, Africans in Haiti, enslaved Africans in Haiti, rose up to fight against the French domination of the island, rose up to fight against French imperialism and slavery on the island. And in a protracted war that ended in 1804, the Africans in Haiti rose up and defeated Napoleon's army in Haiti, and would free themselves from the colonial yoke of France. That was enough by itself, but several other things made Haiti's victory on that island significant for people everywhere. In 1804, Haiti was the only democracy in the world. It was the only country in the world in the early 1900s. There was a scramble for Haiti, and France was continued to exert influence over Haiti, and Germany joined the act and started sending Germans there, and then the United States started sending businesses down there, and there was a fight between the three countries over who would get to dominate Haiti. My great-grandfather escaped World War I from Germany, moved to Haiti, opened a business, and got married and gave birth to my grandmother. He escaped the war in Germany and fled to freedom in Haiti. He colonized people doing so, but that's how he escaped the war machine of Germany, was by going somewhere where he knew he didn't have to fight like that, and that was in Haiti. So at that time, three countries were fighting for power there. And the National City Bank of New York wanted to go in and handle all of the money that was being passed around in Haiti. They wanted to own the Haitian National Bank. They wanted to purchase it under duress and handle all the money that was coming through the coffers of the Haitian government. But they were having trouble doing so because of Germany. Germany was fighting to do the exact same thing. So on January 22nd, 1914, these are records that are available in the National Archives. There was a meeting between lobbyists for the National City Bank of New York and Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan. They had a meeting on January 22nd, 1914, and the lobbyists for the bank convinced the U.S. State Department to invade Haiti, and that led to the invasion and occupation of Haiti. So there was a financial interest that U.S. corporations had in Haiti, and as a result, they convinced the U.S. State Department to intervene in Haiti and to, in fact, invade Haiti in order to advance U.S. financial interests. To show you how little has changed, the Haitian government passed a tripling of the minimum wage in Haiti, went from 31 cents an hour to 64 cents an hour. And that passed after a lot of protests. The labor movement in Haiti grew and organized itself and passed the enhanced minimum wage against the interest and against the lobbying from the textile industry, Hanes, Fruit of the Loom, the Gap, and other major corporations that get their clothes for cheap in Haiti. And it passed in spite of their lobbying to the opposite. So after the lobbying happened and their lobbying failed and the minimum wage was increased anyway, Hanes, Fruit of the Loom, the Gap, and several other major textile corporations came to the U.S. State Department. We know this because of the Julian Assange leaks of U.S. documents, came to the U.S. State Department and convinced the State Department to go and force the Haitian government to create an exemption for the textile industry, which means just like if you're a waiter here, if you wait tables here, you only get a sub-minimum wage. In Haiti, if you are textile workers, the Hanes Corporation, Fruit of the Loom, these major multinational corporations did not want to pay 64 cents an hour. They got the State Department to intervene and reduce the minimum wage in Haiti down back to 31 cents an hour for textile workers. The United States continues to exert imperial domination over Haiti to this day. But whenever imperial domination is attempted, there is resistance to it and fight back. There was fight back to colonial domination in Haiti in 1791. During the 1915 invasion of Haiti, which lasted 20 years, there was a major uprising and fight. It was a group named the Cacos, who was a group of revolutionaries who were fighting to overthrow the U.S. intervention, overthrow the U.S. occupation, and force the U.S. government to double its number of troops that it sent to Haiti in order to maintain the occupation there. And the U.S. government was so desperate to stop the uprising, it murdered the leader of the uprising, and then took pictures of that murder and would hand it around, would drop flyers in neighborhoods in order to try to demoralize Haitian people. In the same way, there was an uprising then and a fight back then against U.S. imperialism. Today, there's an uprising and a fight back against U.S. imperialism by Haitians, by Africans living in Haiti. And we are in support of those who are protesting against U.S. imperialism and protesting against the dictatorship there. And while the insurrection at Capitol Hill on January 6th, when white people were coming here to fight against elections, the police here were nowhere to be found. But now that we're here fighting, saying we want elections in Haiti, we can't seem to look around any corner without seeing them here. So we know which side they're on. We must ask ourselves, which side are we on? Which side are we fighting for? Which side are we in solidarity with? We must fight with and for the Haitian people and with and for the liberation and unification of Africa. Thank you.
Are you on my people? Which side are you on?
On the freedom side.
I love freedom fight. We gon' fight all day and night until we get it right.
What?
What side are you on, my people? What side are you on? y'all?
We on the freedom side.
What side are you on, my people? What side are you on?
We on the freedom side.
Malcolm X was a freedom man, and he told us how to fight. We gon' fight until we get it right. What side are you on, my people? What side are you on?
We on the freedom side.
What side are you on, my people? What side are you on?
We on the freedom side.
Woo! So again, I know we're dropping a lot of words, and I think it's really important for us to, be doing political education in this space. And I'm going to read another section of the Haitian Constitution, and just with the caveat that there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that guarantees any right to education, any right to housing, any right to Social Security, any right to health care, or anything. And so this is Article 32-1 of the Haitian Constitution. It says, education is a responsibility of the state and of the territorial collectivities. They must place a school freely within the reach of all and see to the level of training of the teachers of the public and non-public sectors. It says fundamental education is obligatory. The classical necessities and the didactic materials shall be placed freely by the state at the disposition of the students at the level of fundamental education. It also says agricultural, vocational, and technical education is a responsibility taken by the state and the territorial collectivities. Preschool and maternal instruction will be a responsibility taken by the state and the territorial collectivities. It says the access to superior studies is open and full equality to all.
I actually pointed about, you said, well, they're normally on
It
the
also
side. He may have
says
just
the
purposely
state
sent them over there, but it was
guarantees
just
to
two of us.
persons with special needs the protection, the education, and any other means necessary for their full enjoyment and for their integration or reintegration into society. And then lastly, it says the state guarantees to persons with special needs the protection Jonathan, you want to say something?
All right, I'm here with, let's move over here a little bit. This is Netfa Freeman, serving as a correspondent, one of the correspondents on the ground with Black Power Media. We're going to interview Sean Blackman, who's with Party for Socialism and Liberation and Anti-Coalition, and also a co-host and producer of By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik, who's going to speak soon, so we can go back and hear the rest of the speakers. What you got for us? Why is PSL thought it was so important to come and support this demonstration?
Yeah, well, that's pretty simple. The reason why we're supporting.
Speak loud.
Sure. Well, it's pretty simple. The reason why we're supporting.
That sounds like you don't want to click it.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty simple because we're supporting this action today by the Black Alliance for Peace because the United States government is supporting a neo-colonial dictatorship in Haiti by continuing to support Jovenel Moise. And it's important that we call it a neo-colonial dictatorship because we know that Moise's mandate has run out. And the only reason that he's able to remain in place is because he has the support of the imperial powers of the world, chiefly the United States, and particularly since we're here in Washington, D.C. This is the beating of world imperialism. So it's important that we do this. You need me to put this when you're talking? Okay, yeah. And so from a standpoint of a revolutionary socialist party, we know that imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism, right? And so all the brutality, all the repression, all of the deep violence that we see being carried out against the Haitian people right now is happening because it's being supported by this government here in the US. And we have neocolonialism right here in Washington, D.C. Because what is neocolonialism? It's when they take a native and put them in charge so it doesn't look like the same old colonialism. It doesn't look like the same old exploitation, but it keeps carrying on in a different package. And so Muriel Bowser is responsible for the same kind of political repression and police violence that we see in Haiti because she's sworn to protect the same capitalist white supremacist system.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
So that we stand with Haiti. The people of Haiti. The only democracy is the Haitian people right now. The only democracy. So we're here, we're in solidarity, we continue to be in solidarity. We are in alignment and in solidarity with Black Lives for Peace because they take on a righteous fight, a fight around self-determination. And we must learn around self-determination and be anti-imperialist, anti-colonial. We have to be anti-capitalist in this fight. So thank you so much for continuing to show us the way, to allowing us to be in solidarity and to continue to elevate the struggle of the Haitian people because again, they have literally freed us. Literally freed us. And it is our charge and our responsibility to fight for all people who are fighting for self-determination and real democracy. So free the land! Free the land! Free the land by any means necessary. Our people united! Will never be defeated! Our people united! Will never be defeated!
World. Yes, thank you. US out of Haiti? US out of Haiti? US out of Haiti? US out of Africa? US out of Africa? US out of Haiti? Yes. So next up we have Joella Roberts with Adopted Black and many other Black immigrant formations to talk a little bit about what's going on with deportation defense, what's going on with this Biden administration deporting more people in these 4 months than the whole Trump administration, and let's talk about it.
Thank you so much for having me. As stated, my name is Joella Roberts. I also use she, her pronouns. I'm an immigrant, undocumented and unafraid from Trinidad and Tobago. And my focus in my work, of course, because I am directly impacted by it, but I am passionate about immigration. I know that this is not a hot topic. This is not a conversation that is centered, especially as we talk about COVID-19. We try to bring essential workers into the conversation. But how many of you are familiar with Title 42? Show of hands. Title 42? One person. 3 people. Okay. Shout out to those 3. Title 42 is something that President Trump used to weaponize health against immigrants, essentially. The Biden administration has deported more people than the entire fiscal year of 2020. So, Trump is terrible, yes, we know that. It's been explained, but Biden is also terrible. And this is also his second go around. Remember that he was vice president, he also a senator, he served in 2 of 3 of our legislative branches. He knows exactly what he's doing. And he's following suit of President Trump. What they've done is use Title 42, which is a health policy and guideline to deport immigrants at the border. The border has been closed for a very long time. Traditionally, asylum takes on average 2 years. So if you go to the United States border at any point, you will see tents of immigrants waiting, literally waiting outside of the U.S. border for 2 years on average, right? Making things worse, COVID-19, they have closed the borders and have begun to expel immigrants. So the difference between expulsion and deportation is Title 42. So when you look up the numbers on deportation, it'll be much different than that of expulsions. And the difference is when they expel you, forgive me, they're saying that you didn't technically enter the country. So they will have immigrants in concentration camps, detention centers, tents, like literal tents, for $700+ a day per person. And they will deport you, and they will make money off of it. And it's unfortunate because we hear about the crisis at the border. How many are familiar at the quote-unquote crisis at the border? That's not new. That's been going on for many, many years. Like, what's new? But what is happening is that when people come to the United States as a family, as a unit, when you come to the border and you're underage, the United States government is saying, okay, because you're a minor, we'll let you in. So families are taking the decision of saying, okay, I can't come into the country, I can't seek refuge and asylum, I can't, get any accommodations, so I will leave my child. It's not unaccompanied minors. They were accompanied, a lot of them. But unfortunately, there were a lot of children that made this journey by themselves or lost their loved ones at the border. Or the thing about the United States government is you have to have a direct relationship with the people that you come with to be able to stay with them. So say I come from Haiti with my aunt. We're getting separated at the border because that is not a direct relative of me. So family separation, in fact, is happening at the border, but it's happening inside of the United States because it takes on average over 20 years to become a citizen in America. Hello? I myself have been here for over 15 years, and I've aged out of my mother's visa application. So if DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, does not give me a pathway to citizenship, I will never be a citizen until I'm over 60. I will have accumulated zero Social Security income, despite paying taxes, like hundreds of dollars in taxes. And this is the same thing for a lot of people who have TPS in the United States. A lot of Haitian people have TPS, temporary protective status, which is in fact temporary, extremely temporary. So can you imagine no serious protection from the United States government? You travel through countries, miles and miles and miles to be sent back. And anytime you have deportation in this country, you see an increased amount of deportation, it directly ties back to the country of origin. Deportation in the United States, the United States is also waging war on that country of origin. It's really important that we center the experiences of immigrants who have entered this country and how immigrants are being persecuted, are being targeted, especially those who are from Haiti. If you are an immigrant, if you are not a citizen, you can get deported. It doesn't matter if you're a legal permanent resident. It doesn't matter if you have TPS. It doesn't matter if you have DACA. It doesn't matter if you're undocumented. Being Black, you already know you're a target, period. And then to make it worse, the government is defending themselves in the name of capitalism in your country of origin. You are gone. We know for a fact that Haiti is under attack because of what? Its resources. Same with Africa. The most nourished. Give me that oil, the United States said. And because our people fight, and because Haiti is the precedent and the example in every department, right? You talked about the Constitution, making way for those who have special needs. The United States government has a public charge that literally says if you are disabled, if you have mental health problems, any problem, and you are quote unquote a liability to this country, you cannot become a citizen. You cannot get your visa. Like literally, something that you do not have a choice over. Your skin, your capabilities, your abilities. You're being criminalized. You have no access. And so even though immigration may not be a topic of concentration, especially as we focus on COVID-19, it's imperative that you understand what is going on at the border. It's imperative that you understand what is going on with undocumented immigrants. There are over 11 million people that are undocumented in the United States. Millions of people. And of course, what would this world be if all Black people, no matter what citizenship status, were to unite? Were to unite. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's important that we also rid, I know this is not the crowd, but I know we got cameras. We rid our xenophobia, right? We work, it's introspection, because you can't get anyone free if you are not free yourself. So you work on your own mind, you do the knowledge, the history. I received a lot of education out here. Thank you to everyone that has invested in me by sharing these words and all of the things that you've learned. But it's our duty to educate ourselves, because ignorance is a privilege. And people die, people perish because of our ignorance. I hate to say it. So as we focus on Haiti, I encourage everyone to focus on what is going on at the border, including all immigrants, because, you know, the numbers are central for Black immigrants in Caribbean nations such as Haiti, as well as Africa. But please remind yourselves that Black people are everywhere. Like, we are the highest population aside from Africa, outside the continent, is Brazil. Like, there are people who look like me that are speaking Spanish, right? So when we talk about the numbers, when we talk about deportation, when we talk about immigration, it's important that we don't forget our Spanish-speaking countries, and we don't forget our people. Please, when you're chanting "Free Haiti," I would prefer that they say now. When you say it now, because urgency. Like, what I said was, in less than a month of Biden being president, he's deported more people than the entire 2020 that Trump was president. Hello? This is urgent. People are dying. Our people are perishing. For real. And it's important, like, all of the issues intertwine when you talk about healthcare, the fact that healthcare is tied to labor. You know, you can't get a COVID shot if you don't have health insurance. You don't have health insurance if you're undocumented. You know, immigrants, it's so much that we can talk about, you know, but the central focus right now is Haiti, and we need to liberate Haitians because they're doing it themselves. They did it time and time again. They've gotten themselves free time and time again. And so I say thank you to Haiti for being the example, and not only being the example, but wanting to emancipate us in other countries. Wanting to emancipate Black people in other countries. Like, hello? And so it is our duty to repay them by investing in our friends and saying, hey, this is the conversation. This is what's going on. This is the updates. To continue our fight, to continue to show up. The numbers were a lot bigger last time I was here. I hate to say it. We can't lose focus. I know it's a lot to focus on, but we don't live single issue lives. So it's imperative that we understand the plight of others and we continue to fight for our own fights. And that's how we're going to get free. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Since we're talking about, you know, power and Black folks uniting, I'm going to do a chant. So it's a call and response. You can repeat after me. It's called Power, and it comes out of Florida with the Dream Defenders. So, power! 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 Transformation! 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 And miracles! I want it! I want it! I need it! I got to have 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 it! Right now! 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 Woo! Yes, we need to get some power. That's what we're up for, trying to get some power. And we have another powerful speaker who's about to come up, Jacqueline Lukman, to come share some words.
Peace, people, peace. Thank you so much for coming out today in solidarity with the people of Haiti. My name is Jacqueline Lukman. I am one half of Lukman Nation, the other half Baptist Lukman. I'm also a co-host of By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik with my host Sean Blackman back there, and also a member of the Black Power Media team with P. Jared Ball over there. Where'd he go?
Jared Ball was
he was over here somewhere. But listen, I want to talk about internationalism for a minute and the need for us to understand that what happens to working class and poor and oppressed people around the world is always, always, always directly connected to us. In every instance, I don't care what country it happens in. If we are talking about standing in solidarity with the people of Haiti, and people have a problem with that, and they say, well, what do I have to do with these people in Haiti? Well, first of all, they were the people who led the first and only successful slave rebellion in the history of the world. They were, as Max said, were the first democracy, the first country. They freed themselves. And so when you look at it from that perspective, what does that have to do with us? Well, how did we get here? I'm not ashamed of my heritage as a person of African descent whose ancestors were dropped on these shores because of the same slave trade that the Haitians rose up against. I'm proud of that connection because that rebellion runs in my blood. So Haiti and the people of Haiti have been punished ever since for daring to defeat not just the English, not just the French, but the British as well. And to tell the United States, no, we will not become another colony for you. And fought against it all this time. So that's one connection right there. And then when we talk about what's going on in Haiti right now, look at the way wages are suppressed. I mean, we're fighting for $15 an hour in this country. In Haiti, they fought for 61 cents. Cents.
Talk about it.
And the people in this building colluded with businesses and corporate owners and politicians to take that from them. Which politician? How about Hillary Clinton? How about the Clinton Foundation? And how about Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris have done or said anything to rectify that? So how are we here in this country claiming that we are fighting, excuse me, for fair wages, a decent wage for working people, a living wage, and ignore the fact that even working people in Haiti are still working for starvation wages? How can we ignore that? We cannot. You know how I know we can't ignore it? How many of you wear Hanes underwear? Don't tell me how many of you actually wear Hanes underwear. Don't want to know. But that's how common this issue is. The food we eat. Haitians have the most arable land closest to the United States. They can't even grow their own food to feed themselves. Agriculture corporations have taken over the very land. And they grow food that is exported. Where do you think a lot of it comes to? Right here. When you talk about Haiti, you wonder what Venezuela has to do with anything. Why should I care about Haiti? Well, if you care about Haiti, you should care about Venezuela because Jovenel Moïse stole the money from the Petrocaribe program that Venezuela set up to assist the people of Haiti. And then when you want to make further connections, how about the connections between Venezuela and Iran, Venezuela and China, Venezuela and Russia? These are all countries that are anti-imperialist in nature and are all targets of U.S. anti-democratic propaganda campaigns, calling them all communists, making up a whole bunch of human rights abuses. But they are all countries that oppose imperialism. And Haiti is the vanguard for that. So as an African in America, I am connected to the Haitian people. As a working class and poor person who is in solidarity with working class and poor people, I'm connected to the Haitian people. And I'm connected to all the people in Venezuela, in China, in Iran, in Brazil, in El Salvador, in other countries that are rising up against U.S. imperialism and fighting for self-determination. And honestly, just as a human being who understands that it is the human right for self-determination that this country claims it honors, but has never allowed another country to have, I'm also connected to Haiti. We cannot win this fight against this system without international solidarity. So I'm here in support of the people of Haiti for a whole lot of reasons, but mainly because this system has to end.
That's right.
Peace, people. All power to the people.
Compromise.
No retreat.
Compromise.
No retreat.
Compromise.
No retreat. Woo! All right. So we have a couple more speakers, and then we'll open it up. All right. We have Sean from Answer Coalition. Are you speaking?
All right, thank you so much, Nana. How y'all feeling? My name is Sean Blackman. I'm here representing the Answer Coalition. That means Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. And I want to thank our comrades at the Black Alliance for Peace so much for continuing to keep the fire burning on this very important issue. It's a beautiful day to struggle, y'all, and I'm glad about it. And you know, I like so much what the sister from Untitled Chapter was saying about how we have to lift up this message of free Haiti now. Don't just free Haiti, but free Haiti now. Let's get that going. Let me hear you say free Haiti now. Free Haiti now. Free Haiti now. Say it.
Free Haiti now.
What?
Free Haiti now.
What?
Free Haiti now.
What?
Free Haiti now.
And it is imperative that we say free Haiti now and call for an end to the neo-colonial dictatorship of Jovenel Moïse in Haiti that is only able to remain in place because it has the support of the chief imperial power on the world today, the government of the United States. When Martin Luther King talked about the U.S. being the greatest purveyor of violence on the world, he didn't just mean dogs being sicked on innocent people in the streets. He wasn't just talking about police violence. He wasn't just talking about lynching. He was talking about the inhumanity of imperialism and war. That's why he talked about the triple evils of war, white supremacy, and economic exploitation. This is what we're seeing in Haiti. And why is it that the U.S. is so determined to keep this country from being independent, from having sovereignty, for developing? The same reason why the U.S. was involved in overthrowing Maurice Bishop in Grenada.
That's right.
The same reason that the U.S. continues its criminal unilateral blockade against Cuba. The same reason the U.S. has sanctions against Venezuela and Nicaragua. The U.S. does not want any kind of independence or strength in the Caribbean and in Latin America because that is a threat to the stranglehold that Washington has over the whole of this earth and its project to conquer all lands, resources, and peoples. And so we have to understand that this neo-colonial dictatorship that we're talking about is not just restricted to Haiti. We've got neo-colonialism right here in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
Because what is neo-colonialism? That's just when they take a native and put them in charge so that the same exploitation, the same repression, the same inhumanity can continue, but it's obscured because it looked different. And so in Washington, D.C., we have a mayor, a so-called progressive, Muriel Bowser. That's right, Muriel Bowser, who although she is a Black native Washingtonian, is a class enemy of Black folks in this city and has been the entire time she's been in office. Now, why do I say that? Because she continues to facilitate displacement and gentrification of Black folks in this city. I'm glad we've been talking about the Constitution of Haiti that talked about the issue of housing. Do you all know that in Washington, D.C., there are at least 10,000 empty housing units? Well, then why in the world is there a housing encampment right here? Why is there homelessness anywhere in this city? Why are there human beings living on the street eating out of trash cans? It's because housing, which should be a human right, is put towards the interest of capital. And if you can't pay, then you can't stay. This is the inhumanity of capitalism and the neo-colonial system. And so the same state repression that we're seeing in Haiti, we know what happened here in DC too. Jovenel Moise sending the Haitian National Police and those other military agencies against the struggling people of Haiti, same way that Muriel Bowser sent the DC police against protesters right here in this city, all during the summer, doing a rebellion against racism. And so, my friends, we have to understand that you and I are bound in a single garment of destiny with the people of Haiti, with the struggling peoples of this earth. And you and I will never be free as long as Haiti is chained. That's why we have to say, free Haiti now! Free Haiti now! Free Haiti now! What? Free Haiti now! What? Free Haiti now! What? Free Haiti now! And one last thing I want to say is that imperialism is the highest form of capitalism. And if what we want is an end to the neo-colonial dictatorship in Haiti, if what we want is an end to imperialism all across this world, then what we have to do is organize so that we can destroy the capitalist system that is at the root of it all. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Sean Blackman. Peace if you're willing to fight for it, and let your motto be resistance. Thank you.
Woo! Thank you. So at our last rally on March 15th, we uplifted Mumia. Free Mumia! 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 Mumia will be free! 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 Free all political prisoners! Free all political prisoners now! What's the call?
Free them all!
Free them all! What's the call? Free them all!
Yes, yes. So we're about to play a update. We're about to play Mumia giving us an update about their health and well-being. Because again, as Sean drew those connections, the political repression that people are facing here, as you see, we are increasingly getting more and more police officers and folks are getting paid to quote unquote protect and serve the interests of the U.S. empire. And so Mumia has consistently spoke out against the U.S. empire and is being consistently punished for that. And so it's important for us to draw those connections of when people speak truth to power, how they are treated in this country. So want to play? It's on 4%, so you can see if it connects. If you haven't already, there are snacks and water and drinks to the right of me. Okay.
Dear sisters, brothers, comrades, and friends, and family, on the move. How can I thank you? These, my words, can hardly measure the flood of love that you have radiated on my behalf in recent life. I am almost without words, but I'll try. Thank you, Wadida. Thank you, Pan Africa. Your support from Philadelphia to France, from points across the nation, and literally around the globe, have pulled me from a prison cell and placed me in a hospital room to be treated for a condition I didn't know I had. In the age of pandemic, now, indeed, deeply doubted pandemic, as of January 2021, over 300,000 prisoners have tested positive for COVID-19. Imagine that, in a cell, trying to breathe with a weight pressed on your chest. Imagine an elder man or woman, or even a young person. Because yes, we are also in an age of mass incarceration, which day by day increases its infliction upon the elderly, struggling unsuccessfully to breathe, to walk, to be. I thank you all for reaching out, and I urge you all, let our mission be abolition. I love you all. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu Jamal.
Wall by wall, we gonna free Mumia Abu Jamal.
Brick by brick, wall by wall, we're gonna free Mumia Abu Jamal.
Brick by brick,
Wall by wall, we're gonna free Mumia Abu Jamal.
brick by brick, wall by wall, we're gonna free Mumia Abu Jamal. No compromise.
No retreat.
No compromise.
No
No
retreat.
compromise.
No retreat.
No compromise.
No retreat.
No compromise.
No retreat.
Woo! Yes, yes. Power to the children. Power to Zion. So I'm gonna open up the floor in case there's anyone else who wants to say some words. We made a lot of connections today because, as Joella said, and as Audre Lorde says, we don't live in single issues. All of these things are connected, and so we have to connect what's happening in prisons here to what's happening around housing, to what's happening around healthcare, to what's happening around imperialism and war abroad and the fight for democracy. And wanted to uplift one thing. Okay, we do have Eugenia here, so we're gonna close out. Okay. Oh, okay. Yanae's here too. Okay. We got two more speakers, and then we will close out. So I'm going to invite Yanae, who's been organizing around Free Mumia and a host of things in Philadelphia. Free Mumia! Free all political prisoners! Free them all! Free them all!
What's the call? Free them all.
What's the call? What's the call? What's the call? Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people.
Ain't no power like the power of the people.
Because the power of the people don't stop.
The power of the people don't stop.
One thing I want to let y'all know is that in Philadelphia, we have a call out. It's going to get louder and louder, but I'm letting you know right now, we are asking people to come to Philadelphia, to mobilize in Philadelphia with us on the weekend of April 23rd, 24th, and 25th. April 24th is Mumia Abu Jamal's birthday. We always mobilize for Mumia's birthday, but this time is extremely important because they are doing their best to kill him in that prison, and it is time for him to be released today.
in a mental health crisis when his family called for help and they came and they murdered him. So we want people to come into Philadelphia and support us as we stand for dignity and liberty for all of our people. And I want to say, last year on July 4th, we had, because we also always rally from Mamiya on July 5th, and last year on July 4th, when we were rallying from Mamiya, and Mamiya called in, after Mamiya called in, and I was communicating with the people, interestingly enough, one of the things that I was referencing was the bravery of the Haitian people, and the reality that in Haiti, the people know where their alignment is, and they know who their enemy is, because we had to remember when we're talking about these connections, I had to remind people we got all of these pigs that are in our cities here, including our own relatives that are wearing those uniforms. And in Haiti, you see that the police, the people who are wearing those police uniforms, are taking those police uniforms off and they are standing with their people. Because they know that their job and their duty is to their people first. And those connections last again right now when we look at what the people of Haiti are doing. They've consistently done that. The people stand with the people first. And that is most important. We're saying free Haiti. Haiti is freeing itself. Haiti is an empowered nation. Haiti has consistently been an empowered nation. Haiti is the example. They know that it is their job and their duty. They are the ones to free themselves. It is our job to get out of their way, to get this nation out of the way of what they are doing for their own selves. They don't need us to free them. They need us to be in solidarity with their freedom. Haiti is free. Haiti is a free nation. So we need to remember that. We do not need that paternalistic language in our movement. We have people everywhere who know how to do their own fight. The people that have hands, they know how to fight for themselves. They have their own voice. We have to amplify their voice. We have to stand behind their solutions. We have to stand behind the solutions of the people of Haiti, of the people of Nigeria, of the people of Uganda, of the people of Somalia, of the people of Palestine, of the people of Cuba, of the people of Venezuela. It is our job here to get this bullshit-ass nation the fuck out of their way. And we need to understand that, what our job is. We have a common enemy. When we're fighting for our issues, we step up. We step up and they stand in solidarity with us. And when they're fighting for their issues, they're all our issues, but they're all localized. So when anybody is standing for their issues, know where you belong in the fight. And don't stand in front of the people whose fight it is. That's what the problem has been going on with Black Lives Matter. I am a member of Black Lives Matter Philly also. We know in Black Lives Matter Philly that we stand behind the people who suffer the most. And that includes the families. That is where we belong. We have to recognize where we stand in this struggle. That is how we stand in solidarity with Haiti. The Haitian people are strong. The Haitian people are fierce. The Haitian people set the fucking example for the entire world. And they let everybody know how amazing Africans are. And it doesn't matter what land we're on. They show the world. They have the power. We don't need to give it to them. We need to recognize it and be emboldened by it and be elevated and lifted as a result of that. Free. All power to the people. All power to the people. All power to the people. Haiti is free. Haiti is free. All power to the Haitian people.
All power to the Haitian
Thank you. Free Mamiya. Free Maroon. Free them all. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You know, it's just been Black women holding this face down. Same Black woman who's holding down that Haitian revolution. You know, it's a lot of unknown names, a lot of unknown tactics, from the sabotage, from the stealing of the guns and the weapons in the master's house. That's all Black women. That's the labor of Black women, because Black women have a lot to lose and a lot to gain. So we're going to close it out with Eugenia, another Haitian Black woman who's going to speak power to the people.
Yay!
First, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who stand in solidarity with Haiti today. And my sister. Power to the people. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
We know who we are. We know who we are. We don't need somebody to define who we are.
We don't need somebody to define who we are.
We know our culture.
We know our culture.
We know our heritage.
We know our heritage.
We know our history.
We know our history.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
A people united.
We'll never be defeated.
A people united.
We'll never be defeated.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
We talk about police brutality in America. We talk about police brutality in America. We talk about mercenaries. You know, the U.S. Embassy had the audacity to call the Haitian police officers who went on the ground to form a union to ask for proper pay rate, to ask for better health care, to ask for better equipment so they can serve their community. They put out something on Twitter saying that the Phantoms are terrorists. But in 2019, about 7 former U.S. soldiers, Blackwater, you know what that means?
Yeah.
You know what Blackwater soldiers mean?
Mercenaries.
All right. They were in Haiti with heavy weapons, going toward the Haitian bank to hijack whatever we had in the bank. Miss Cecil escorted them out of Haiti without trial, without any charges. So who are the terrorists?
United States.
Who are the terrorists, people?
United States government.
All right. So how do you ask Haitian police officers who are on the street because they're not getting paid, because the resources they're supposed to use to protect the people are giving to gangs to go kill the people, and you call them terrorists? 13 of them have been fired and are in hiding. Lawyers, their lawyers are being arrested. The union leader is not taken by the dictator. He incarcerated. Nobody knows where they have taken him to. So we talk about terrorism. Who's the terrorist? Who's the terrorist? Who's the terrorist? Imperialism, we need to end. We need to end it. Imperialism need to end. We need to end it. Imperialism need to end. We need to end it. Imperialism need to end. We need to end it. Dictatorship needs to go. It needs to go. Dictatorship needs to go. It needs to go. Power to the people. Power to the people. Liberation of all political prisoners. Liberation of all political prisoners. Economic resources for our people, for our gang.
Economic resources for our people.
Economic resources for our people, for our gang. You don't have to be afraid to say it because you have to feel it. If you don't feel it, you can fight for it. If you don't feel it, you got to stop the ground and feel it in every fiber of your body. Because that's what the fight is about. We have to create a better future for our children. No one is going to do it for us. We're going to set up and do it for ourselves. Power to the people. 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 We're going to stand united no matter what color you are, but understand humanity is what we're fighting for. Humanity is what we're fighting for. Economic justice is what we're fighting for. Participatory democracy, one man, one woman, one vote. One man, one woman, one vote. That is what we are asking for. We do not need an electoral college. We do not need the State Department to tell us the result of our election. We don't need the State Department to tell us when to organize a referendum for our Constitution. People united will never be defeated. I can hear you. A people united
will never be defeated.
A people united
will never be defeated.
A people united
will never be defeated.
What we are dealing with in Haiti, it is not just Haiti. Africa is having the same issues. Right here in Washington, D.C., we are having the same problem. If you go across the Anacostia River, ask where the hospitals are. Where are the hospitals across the Anacostia River? Where are the good grocery shops on the Anacostia River? You have to go to Maryland or drive over here to Northwest to get some good food. So it is a fight for the people. It is a fight for the people of all race. It is a fight for our human dignity. It is a fight for equality. It is a fight for proper education for our children. You need to understand capitalism has no limit. We, the people, need to set the limit. Capitalism has no limit. Only we, the people, can set the limit. A people united
will never be defeated.
A people united
will never be defeated.
Power to the people. Power to the people. You gotta feel it. If you are standing here, you are in solidarity with Haiti. You can't be afraid. You can't be afraid. You gotta say it. Say it with everything inside of you. Power to the people.
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 When the U.S. Embassy put out on Twitter with a picture of Joe Biden, Haitians stay home. Don't come. You are not welcome. But guess what? We don't want to come to your place anyway. We want to stay home. So take your dictator, put it in the penitentiary, give that our resources, let us use it for our people. We're going to stay home. We are happy at home. We have what we need to survive. Move your knees off our neck. 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 Move your knees
off our necks.
Down with dictatorship.
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 No to imperialism.
No to imperialism.
No to neoliberalism.
No to neoliberalism.
Education for the people.
Education for the people.
Economic resources for the people.
Economic resources for the people.
A free world for the people.
Free world for the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Let Haiti be free.
Let Haiti be free.
Let Haiti live.
Let Haiti live.
Let Haiti breathe.
Let Haiti breathe.
Let Haiti breathe.
Let Haiti breathe.
Let Haiti live.
Let Haiti live.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
And long live Jacques Dessalines. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And since we're at time, I'm going to close out with a chant that is taken from Assata Shakur's A Letter to the People. And Assata Shakur is currently in Cuba, still living, still fighting, and is a political prisoner. You know, in some respects, you know, she is in asylum in Cuba because of the State Department, because of the United States government that won't let Black people exercise self-determination. And so it's a call and response. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
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 I say, thank y'all. Yes, if you would like to follow up and join Black Alliance for Peace, please follow us at Blacks for Peace
also sign up in our sign up sheet. Also look out for emails. Papa and other folks are also organizing some actions on Mumia's birthday here in DC. So please stay tuned with us. You can also go to blackallianceforpeace.com.
And I just wanna dance tonight. Yeah, you know, little baby Medusa tipping the juice up. I go back and forth in a Uber, travel for 2 months. I'm the Italy's hallelujah. Open my cheeks, I'm Mr. Rabbit, on my head. Angelo dressed up, looking the glass up, the milk in 100 days. I make money for money, say I've been writing in 100 days. To the rich after I be called it, they be for none. I don't want shadow blades, shadow wings to carry me.
You want to take a group picture? So you want to be in solidarity so we can show.
You don't want to say anything? They can hear you.
Join us behind me for a photo. Yes, everyone.